There we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the PlayStation Forecast episode 61. I am your host, Alex Derrickson. I hope you guys are doing great. I'm feeling good. I didn't get a chance to play a whole lot this last week, but we've been doing a lot of stuff here. Did the stream on Wednesday of the SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 GM mode, which was a blast. I'm gonna get back into that. That's probably gonna be a regular thing for a while, just because it's fun and it's a little something mindless we can do. But I'm kind of working on that, making that a little better, a little smoother, learning from the mistakes. Now, if things seem like they're running better or looking better or just feeling a little better, that tickle in your pickle is the fact that I've upgraded that damn laptop that has plagued me for 60 consecutive weeks. Now, don't get me wrong. It served me quite well. It has done a fantastic job. It has over-exceeded what a laptop of that caliber should have done in over a year. Now, we have upgraded. We're officially on a laptop that can handle the paces I'm trying to put this through. That's going to mean cleaner streams. That's going to mean the intro doesn't lag. Now, does that mean the first thing I do is cut to the camera after the intro and it's going to be a straight black screen? You bet your ass. That's what just happened. If you're watching live, you totally saw that. If you're not watching live, you totally missed it, and that's why you should watch live. Hope you guys are doing great. I'm feeling, like I said, I'm feeling good. I want to make sure that everything has carried over well. There's one little here we're going to fix. We're going to fix this on the fly. There's just some things, still trying to figure out this whole computer, what carried over, what didn't carry over. It's kind of like, this isn't the first time the show has been in this sort of purgatorious state, a purgatory. As we've done this is where the show takes place now, is its third room that I've done this thing in. We've upgraded mics, we've upgraded, how the audio of it goes, how it looks, the feel of it, the flow. So these little things are gonna come and go, I think, over the next week or two. So just bear with me as I get my bearings about me with this new computer, the new setup, and all that stuff too. But I'm very excited about it. But because of that, did not get a whole lot of time to play a bunch of stuff. I was going to get into the Dreams early access this past weekend, but then all three of us, my wife, myself, and the kiddo, all sick, all with the same thing. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm still not feeling great, but the show must go on, and I swear to God, if packing up an entire house and moving while I was still doing this between two houses doesn't stop me from doing it, you bet your ass some congestion isn't going to stop me either. I'm feeling good. I'm going to just push through this next hour and a half. The show is packed full of news this week. So we gotta get into it. But hopefully this coming week, I know my stream plans are at least doing Dreams at some point. I don't know when, but since I've got this new computadora, I want to push it. I want to do as much as I can with it to figure out, the hiccups and things like that. And, ain't nothing to it but to do it, right? Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Is that the saying? But I know Aladdin, the live action Aladdin, is coming out this week. So I want to stream Disney's Aladdin for the Genesis, a.k.a. the right Aladdin, and a.k.a. the third best-selling game on the Sega Genesis ever. So I want to get that going. I want to do a Dream stream. I kind of just want to, like I said, I want to push all of this through its paces to figure out, where the hangups are going to be, where the hiccups are, because that's going to be, I think the first couple weeks as we fiddle a bite with this here new setup. But I'm excited. You're caught up on my personal news, so we just need to do that there rigmarole, and we can get into this news here. So this is the PlayStation Forecast, and it does come to you each and every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on youtube.com/pressxtoalex and podcast services around the world, including Spotify. And if you want to get the show early, you can. And you're maybe asking yourself, how early can I get this show? And you can get this show now. As it happens, as I say, week in and week out, peek behind that curtain and see how this sausage gets made every Monday at around 7:30 Eastern Time on twitch.tv/pressxtoalex, and you can watch the show live as it happens. I remember, if you do watch the show live and you want to chat, I'm not in the chat. I'll get into the chat afterwards where we can talk about stuff, after the show ends, but I kind of got to focus on all this stuff because that is the plague of doing something like this on my own. If you want to support the show, you can at patreon.com/pressxtoalex at the $1 tier, where it just helps. Everything helps, right? But if you don't have that dollar to toss, it is not a big deal to me. You can always just support the show by retweeting it or sharing it on a PS4 subreddit or posting it on a forum or reaching out to people that you think would enjoy it and want the smooth jazz of my mouth in their face. That check over the boxes. Support the show. You can let your voice be heard by writing into psforums.pressxtoalex.com, where you can submit questions, comments, commentary, concerns, and context, or you can just follow me on Twitter and get at me there at twitter.com/pressxtoalex. I think that is it. We are caught up. We are good. We have rigged the morale. So without further ado, let's get into the news. Now, typically I try to arrange the news in the chronological order. I didn't this time. I did it more by order of importance, just because there's a lot, like I said. So this is from Bloomberg. It is a lot. It is a big sandwich full of news. So hunker down, unbutton the pants, loosen the belt, just wear your Thanksgiving pants as we digest this Bloomberg article from Yuji Nakamura, where Sony's deal with Microsoft has blindsided its own PlayStation team. So this is kind of a two news in one deal. So there was the news that came out after we recorded last week's episode, because that's how my life works, that PlayStation and Sony and Microsoft have partnered up over cloud gaming for the next generation and then for the foreseeable future. This is going to kind of lump that news in with the news of how the teams over at Sony responded and reacted to it. So, strap in. When Sony Corp unveiled a cloud gaming pact with arch-rival Microsoft Corp, it surprised the industry. Perhaps no one was more shocked than employees of Sony's PlayStation division, who have spent almost 2 decades fighting the U.S. software giant in the $38 billion video game console market. Last week, the companies announced a strategic partnership to co-develop game streaming technology and host some of PlayStation's online services on the Redmond-based company's Azure cloud platform. It comes after PlayStation spent 7 years developing its own cloud gaming offering with limited success. Negotiations with Microsoft began last year and were handled directly by Sony's senior management in Tokyo, largely without the involvement of the PlayStation unit. According to people familiar with the matter, staff at the gaming division were caught off guard by the news. Managers had to calm workers and assure them that the plans for the company's next-generation console weren't affected, said the people, asking not to be identified, discussing private matters. That is always a good sign, right? Like when everybody's like taken aback and frightened by the deal, that's always a good sign you did the right thing. That difficult moment is part of a painful lesson that Sony and many other technology companies are facing as the world's leading cloud computing providers become more powerful. If you aren't spending billions of dollars a year on data centers, servers, and network gear, you can't keep up. Realizing that the homegrown cloud service isn't going to cut it, Sony Chief Executive Officer Kenichiro Yoshida is being forced to collaborate rather than confront his old gaming nemesis. Quote, Sony feels threatened by this trend and the mighty Google by the mighty Google and has decided to leave its network infrastructure build up to Microsoft, end quote, said asymmetric advisor strategic Amir Anvarsade. Why would they sleep with the enemy unless they feel threatened? Sony jumped 9.9% on Friday, the most in 18 months. The company also announced a record share buyback, but analysts pointed to Yoshida's speed in responding to a shifting video game industry as a positive factor. This shows, quote, a new Sony, end quote, and should be applauded by investors, SMBC Nikko Securities Inc. analyst Ryosuke Katsura wrote in the report. wrote in a report, quote, "Management is adapting rapidly to change," end quote. A Sony spokesman confirmed that talks with Microsoft began last year, but declined to provide further details. On Tuesday, executives including PlayStation head Jim Ryan will update shareholders on strategy during the company's annual Investor Day. Sony became the first big video game company to enter cloud gaming when it bought U.S. startup Gaikai Inc. in 2012 for $380 million. 3 years later, it rolled out PlayStation Now, letting users play games hosted on servers miles from their living rooms. The service has since attracted 700,000 paying subscribers, but a decision to host it in-house has led to ongoing complaints about choppy connectivity. PlayStation Now has been a very limited service, said David Cole, founder and chief executive officer of DFC Intelligence. The company's other online game service and main cash cow, the PlayStation Network, enables multiplayer matches of games running on PlayStation 4 consoles. For now, that is still hosted by the other giant of cloud computer gaming, Amazon Web Services. Sony and Amazon held talks last year for a deeper collaboration on cloud gaming, but couldn't agree on commercial terms, according to a person familiar with the matter. That led to Sony's discussions with Microsoft, the person said. Amazon is currently developing its own cloud gaming service, the information reported last year. The pivot toward Microsoft was preceded by several key personnel changes at Sony, including moving some senior PlayStation Now staff to other divisions. The person said, John Codera, who rose through the ranks running the network site, who was also replaced as PlayStation boss in February, a little more than a year after taking the top job. The key question is who really wins from the partnership. Most analysts agree that, at least in the short to medium term, it's a positive for Sony. Cloud gaming isn't ready for prime time yet. When Google unveiled Stadia in March, some users reported mixed results, delays in registering actions, and reduced graphics quality. Cloud gaming will account for just 2% of the industry's revenue by 2023, according to IHS Market. That's why Sony and Microsoft are moving ahead with their next-gen consoles expected next year. Securing access to Azure gives Yoshida a powerful hedge against a future scenario where cloud gaming does end up making consoles obsolete. Microsoft may come out an even bigger winner. The Xbox unit continues to churn out games and consoles, but is now increasing focus on ways to sell more cloud software. In March, it announced a lineup of services for game development and cloud hosting that it's hawking to game companies of all sizes. Landing console king Sony makes it more likely that Azure, and not Amazon or Google, becomes the industry standard for cloud deployment. Quote, Microsoft is the clear winner that Sony picked their technology, even though they are a direct competitor in the gaming space, end quote, said DFC's Cole. Over the long term, some are warning Sony could be the loser. Currently, it charges publishers like Electronic Arts Inc. and Capcom up to 30% of sales made through PlayStation consoles. But if streaming takes off, it will have to compete against Microsoft while paying its rival for cloud access. That could leave Sony struggling to stand out both on technical and pricing terms. Quote, this move raises some serious questions about its future dominance, end quote, said Anverzadeh of Asymmetrics Advisors. It's also unclear how antitrust regulators will respond to the two of the three players in the console market teaming up to develop a key technology, especially as it involves the world's largest company by market value. Cooperation by the number one and number two in any industry, says AT&T Inc. and Verizon Communications Inc., to the detriment of rivals would likely prompt pushback. Regardless of when and if cloud gaming takes off, securing exclusive titles will continue to be critical for Sony, according to Pierce Hardling-Rolls, IHS Market's head of gaming research. Similar to how Netflix fights Prime Video while relying on Amazon for cloud hosting, and how Apple Inc. competes against Samsung Electronics while buying its components, Sony's core strategy of accumulating a strong lineup of games remains unchanged. Quote, exclusive content remains key, said Harding-Rolls. So there's a lot to unpack in here. Sony and Microsoft are playing nice with each other, right? Thus, somewhat causing a truce in the quote-unquote console war. I use finger quotes if you're listening, but it definitely paints a murky picture, right? It's that whole question of, you know, who's going to win this exchange, and why would Sony sleep with the enemy if they didn't feel threatened? And I think those are both really interesting points to make and to address. So In terms of who wins or loses, this is definitely a like ask me again in 10 years kind of thing, right? It's a situation where you just kind of look at it and you're like, okay, like this is we don't know up front, right? We just know that this is a thing that happened, and how it's going to shake out and play out in the future, we can't we can only speculate, right? So you've got to look at what in this deal, what does Sony have that Microsoft doesn't have? And comparatively between, if you're just looking solely at this console generation, just PS4 and Xbox One, if we're letting these exist in a vacuum, PlayStation has the games, right? Xbox has the services. And I think that kind of shows the pivots, you know, and you see Microsoft having gone out last E3 and announced, you know, all the different studios they picked up with like Ninja Theory and Compulsion and, you know, Turn 10 and all the other ones they've recently, Obsidian and the other ones they've acquired, right? And those are great trees to plant. They have yet to bear fruit. And that's, you know, that's how that works, right? Like it's early on, you announce the stuff, but those games are going to be coming. Where Sony has not just the games now, but the properties to keep pursuing those games, right? Like, you know, God of War, Horizon, Spider-Man, The Last of Us, Uncharted, like all those are titles and franchises under their belt. That's under their belt, right? Like it's not a shared space. They're doing a lot of what Nintendo does, where if you buy a Switch, what's the reason to buy a Switch? It's Breath of the Wild, it's Mario Odyssey, it's, you know, the Nintendo mainline mascots, the Mario Karts, the Super Smash Brothers, and things like that. Sony kind of has that same sentiment where they have established properties. They may not have a single sole mascot like a Mario, but they have those established titles, those established licenses, and those properties. So Sony has the games. If Microsoft is supplying the services, that leans into kind of what they did this generation after they kind of tripped and fell out of the gate. It's them, you know, promoting Game Pass. It's them promoting games with gold, Xbox Live, all that stuff. It's the services. It's Microsoft's going to try and get that Netflix pie, you know, in the game space. They want to be that place where you just play your games, you know, on their, but you play everyone's games, but on their box. So it's their proprietary software in the most homes. I think that's kind of where Microsoft's leaning, and you kind of get that vibe when they're talking about streaming. They're talking about play anywhere. They're talking about all that stuff. But as we kind of wait for the technology within the internet, bandwidth speeds, data caps, net neutrality, all that stuff to, you know, shake out, play nice, and let the chips fall, Microsoft's kind of doing what they can to get ahead, and having a possibly very fortuitous relationship with Sony is a very good place to start. Same with Sony, you know, having that relationship with Microsoft. Now, the whole why would they sleep with the enemy if they don't feel threatened is obviously they do, right? Like they went to Amazon first. Amazon's like, nah, we can't not come to terms. You see what Google's doing with Stadia. And Sony sees like, hey, like shit, okay, this is to an extent the future. You know, physical games are still going to be a thing, but if the tech catches up, if the development cycles, you know, catch fire, snowball down the hill or whatever, they don't want to be behind. So what better way to not be behind than to just partner with the people that are ahead of you in it, you know? And I think Microsoft sees that, and Microsoft sees it as possibly an opportunity. You know, I don't think this is going to be like 2020, we're playing The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2 on an Xbox, but it at least kind of shows that there's a friendly handshake in there, right? That Sony can still have the games, and they can still beat Microsoft and beat Nintendo with their titles, with their franchises, with their AAA exclusives that you can only get through their platform. But if you want to do the streaming stuff, then yeah, like it's Microsoft's infrastructure. Now, one second. I think when you kind of look at that and dissect that, it's more of what I said before. It's Microsoft focusing on the services. It's Microsoft being like, if cloud gaming, let's say cloud gaming takes off, and Microsoft's at the forefront of it, and we see this massive shift to digital media, or to digital-only consoles and things like that, then it stops being about the games. It starts being about the tech. It starts being about where does this play best. And if it's a situation where, we saw Microsoft kind of hang its hat on the Xbox One X of being like, hey, you know, this is the best place to play this game. It looks the best over here, but Sony still kind of came out and like, yeah, like it may look the best, but who has the best games? That argument could easily be rendered moot if within this deal down the line, Sony's like, oh yeah, like we're using Microsoft's infrastructure and you can play God of War here, but then if it comes down to like, I'm going to play Madden and you're using the stream, if you're using like a digital only system and you're using a cloud-based kind of computing format, and you're like, I want to play Madden, it stops being about, what console do you use if it's just cloud-based. Like, it's all going to be one unilateral kind of thing. And I think it's interesting, like I said, like we'll have to see how this shakes out. I think it'll be 7, 8, 9, 10 years before we really get the good, hearty, like sit back with our, smoker's jackets on and our cigars and going, oh, that didn't work, or whatever. But it's cool to see the nice little handshake, the calm, right? And Sony being like, look, like, hey, they're ahead of us here. But, as it's said in the article here, exclusive games are still going to be the big sell. And I think it's also going to be how Microsoft gets out their messaging this E3 and the following E3 when these systems really start coming out. It's cool to see how this kind of like this deal impacts like Sony stock jumping almost 10%, just shy of 10%. The share buybacks. You're seeing this ripple effect throughout the actual economy of the business too, not just, the news and the media space that Sony takes with this kind of announcement. Because we're starting to see over the last like 6 weeks, even though they're not going to be at E3, they're really starting to kind of take up that space though, right? They're starting to kind of be like, hey, like, we're still going to be out here. That doesn't mean we've gone away. We just don't really have anything cool to talk about, but we can release these piecemeal bits. But you're seeing that ripple effect. And the issue is too, though, and I think it's also kind of a thing with like just corporate partnerships in general. It's a very need to know basis. I think if you work, one of my biggest gripes about working in like a corporate industry like I do away from here, it's that it is a need to know basis. Like, it's a trickle down thing and it's a hierarchy, and the higher up you are, the more you know, obviously. But like, as you start going down the ranks, like fewer people know things. So when stuff like this comes out, yeah, it's going to be kind of like a core shaking moment. It's like, okay, what does this mean? And for them to kind of be like, oh yeah, hey, like don't worry about it. Everything's still, business as usual, but this is just the thing that we're doing. It's still pretty on brand for Sony. If you've ever read Console Wars from Blake Harris, which I highly recommend, they kind of talk about how when Sony was developing the PlayStation in general, they tucked it away behind like their music department and like low key just was developing the stuff kind of quietly and not secondhand, but like more of like a clandestine kind of nature where they're just like, hey, like just work on it. And when it's done, let us know. And then we'll start like trying to see if we can't get like support for it. So this is still, it feels very on brand for PlayStation and for Sony to kind of like backdoor these deals and do this stuff in secret. But like I said, we'll see how this shakes out in the next, decade, 2 decades, decade and a half ish. Just interesting. The times are changing. And as we see generation over generation, that it's this one is no different. We're heading into this next one was a 9. Generation 9. Just it's all messed up. Next bit of news comes from IGN by way of The Hollywood Reporter, from Adam Bankhurst. PlayStation Productions to adapt Sony games to film and TV. Oh man, I have thoughts on this one. Sony Interactive Entertainment has announced the launch of PlayStation Productions, a production studio that will take Sony's catalog of video game titles and franchises and adapt them for film and television. As reported by The Hollywood Reporter, this new enterprise will be led by Asad Kizilbash and overseen by the chairman of Worldwide Studios at SIE, Sean Layden, and is already in production on its first state of projects and has set up shop on the Sony Studios lot in Culver City. Quote, "We've got 25 years of game development experience, and that's created 25 years of great games, franchises, and stories," Layden tells The Hollywood Reporter. We feel that now is a good time to look at other media opportunities across streaming or film or television to give our worlds life in another spectrum. End quote. From The Last of Us to God of War to Metal Gear Solid to Spyro the Dragon, PlayStation has been home to many stories across many different worlds. Sony believes that with a library of more than 100 original properties ranging from adventure to sci-fi to action to mystery to horror, PlayStation Productions has a wide breadth of content ripe for adaptation. Unlike most video game adaptations that are usually a game studio licensing out its IP, Sony will be producing these projects in-house with PlayStation Productions, and sister company Sony Studios will help with distribution. Quote, instead of licensing our IP out to studios, we felt the better approach was for us to develop and produce for ourselves, says Kizelbash. One, because we're more familiar, but also because we know what the PlayStation community loves, end quote. Kizelbash, Layton, and the team have been working on this new venture behind the scenes for the past couple years. They've been talking to many in the film industry, including Transformers series producer Lorenzo de Bonaventura and Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige. Quote, we looked at what Marvel has done in taking the world of comic books and making it into the biggest thing in the film world, said Layton. It would be a lofty goal to say we're following in their footsteps, but certainly we're taking inspiration from that, end quote. Layden also notes the changing Hollywood landscape and how, as opposed to 20 years ago, selling a video game adaptation is much easier as many more filmmakers are now gamers themselves. As for where they hope to avoid, quote, such big budget efforts like 2016's Assassin's Creed or Warcraft that bombed at the box office and earned weak reviews, end quote, Layton says you have to focus on the ethos from the game and avoid retelling a story that is combined with countless hours of gameplay that doesn't translate well to TV and or film. Quote, you can see just by watching older video game adaptations that the screenwriter or director didn't understand that world or the gaming thing, Layden says. The real challenge is, how do you take 80 hours of gameplay and make it into a movie? The answer is you don't. What you do is you take that ethos, you write from there specifically for the film audience. You don't try to retell the game in a movie, end quote. Another goal of PlayStation Productions is to also help with the wait for game sequels, as in between development of one title to another, fans will be able to revisit their favorite worlds and, quote, have more of that experience and see the characters they love evolve in different ways, end quote. This will also afford PlayStation the right to retain creative control of its titles and ensure the right people are chosen for the right projects. Additionally, it will help ensure these projects are not rushed and the new studio is able to, quote, grow this in a measured, thoughtful way, end quote. Quote, we don't have to rush to market. We don't have a list of X number of titles must be done in this year. None of that, says Layden. The company has been very accommodating to our ambition around this. To grow this in a measured, thoughtful way, this is a passion project for me. To be the first gaming entity to do something lasting and meaningful in a completely different medium is something I'd like to see us achieve here at PlayStation Productions, end quote. While there are no further details on what IPs these first projects are based off of, one may end up being the Last of Us film that back in 2016 was said to be stuck in a standstill. There's also an Uncharted film in the works with Tom Holland set to star as a young Nathan Drake, but that has been said to be in co-production by Arad and Atlas Entertainment Production. With the success of Pokemon Detective Pikachu and it securing the best opening weekend for a video game film, could the era of terrible adaptations based on beloved games finally be coming to an end? Hopefully Sony will make that dream a reality. Now bear with me, because I need to drink some water, and then I need to go off on this, what we just read. Okay, so what the fuck? I'm not a fan of this. I think this is a very, bullish, boneheaded move for Sony to make. This is quite outside the realm, I think, out of their depth is the term I'm looking for. Now, I say this being a massive fan of what Marvel has accomplished. As a media production major in college, I firmly believe the Marvel Cinematic Universe has no right to exist. And not only not to exist, but not to be as damn good as it is. Like from stem to stern, those 22 films, yes, have their hiccups, but what they've accomplished has never been done and probably will not be done to that quality ever again. And we see it. We see people thinking like, oh, that's easy. And they just go out there and it's the DCEU. And what's going on there? We're on our second Batman already, and God knows what the hell Superman's doing. We've got the damn dark, what was it? Geez, the dark, not the, I want to say the dark pictures, but that's Man of Medan. The whole like just dark cinematic universe with the Mummy and Jekyll and Hyde and the creature from the Black Lagoon. And that never got past the Mummy, and the Mummy, it tanked. You know, the best part of the Mummy was the Mummy demastered game. So you see a move like this, and it seems like a trying to capitalize on the zeitgeist, get on that water cooler talk, right? But this isn't the first time Sony's tried to do something like this, you know? We saw it with Powers, where I had to actually Google the name of Powers because I forgot it. I just remembered it was that show that was on the PlayStation Network that starred Charlotte Copley, that was based off the comic book, you know? Now, granted, you're adapting a property that wasn't Sony's, that wasn't under the PlayStation umbrella, but still. Now, the counterpoint to that is you see something like Raising Kratos, where it's like, oh, wow, like, okay, cool. If those are the kind of stories we can also expect, that's awesome. We need more, like, documentaries following, you know, the development of video games, telling those stories, and that's what makes, like, No Clip so good. But if they're going out there and they're going to be like, all right, we're going to make a God of War series. It's like, okay, like what made the Marvel movies work so well is a combination of a lot of things. It wasn't any one thing in particular. It was impeccable casting. Like you look at 11 years over the course of 22 movies, there were 2 I can think of major recasts, and that was Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle, and then Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo. There may have been more, but I can think of those 2 off the top of my head. Going a step further, so you've got to nail that casting. You've got to do, like, it's got to be quality writing, quality directing, quality cinematography. Like, you can't just come out and be like, it's a video game movie, you're going to go see it. And trying to see, like, oh, Detective Pikachu was successful. Now, I don't think Layden and Kizilbash went out there and were like, oh, Detective Pikachu was a success. Let's go make up some news real fast. You know, clearly, like I said, this has been in discussion for a couple years now. But, you know, the hero, like what makes Detective Pikachu so enticing for people to see is, especially in terms of Pokemon fandoms, it's not seeing Pikachu. It's the implementation of Pokemon in the real world. It's how that kind of like blends into our reality, because that's a thing, right? Like you play Pokemon, and one of the first things that I know went off in my head across, like, you know, all the game, the handful of ones that I've played, but with everybody that's played a Pokemon game, it's always been, how cool would this be if this was real life? You know, and that's what made Pokemon Go so successful. And I think what makes Let's Go so popular. And same with Detective Pikachu. It's blending those worlds. It's seeing something that we thought was only a dream when we were children, you know, 20, 25 years ago. Now, if they come out and they're like, oh, yeah, here's a Horizon movie, I think something like Horizon could work really well as a movie. I think God of War would work better as like a high fantasy TV series or like miniseries. But then you get into stuff. I know Greg Miller had tweeted wanting questions regarding, you know, the PlayStation productions, and I tweeted at him my idea. I was like, okay, what about a Patapon animated series? You know, like that could be something you could do, or like a Parappa the Rappa cartoon. There's like bits and pieces here you can pull from, but if you're gonna roll this shit out, like it's gotta, like your first one cannot be a whiff. Like, you cannot mess up that first one, whatever it is. And, like, all eyes are going to be on that when it comes out, because video game movies aren't good. Or, I guess, movies based off video games, yeah, are historically kind of a black hole, right? Like, it's just, you know, they got off to a bad start and have just never really recovered. And they talk about that. You know, I think Layden and Kizilbash have the right mindset of being like, look, we don't pick up the game and put it in a movie. We take what makes the game work, what makes it enticing, and that is the characters, that is, the dialogue, the traits, the set pieces, and things like that. And you build around that. You push that to push the film. But if it's poorly written, if it's poorly directed, if you don't get the right people involved, like, I think this is going to be something that they cannot rush. I think it's something they have to absolutely take their time on, and not lose sight of what got them to the dance too, which is their systems. Excuse me, it's their consoles and everything too. I think this is a thing where far, far, far more could go wrong than could go right. I think it's going to be way easier for this thing to not be a good idea. And I think, I know this wasn't a PlayStation production, but you see like the Ratchet and Clank movie, which I had tweeted earlier this afternoon. I don't think I've ever actually seen a physical copy of that movie in a store anywhere. Like, that came out, no fanfare, gone, erased from the memories. You can get it on Amazon. You can get a physical copy on Amazon, but I've never walked into a retailer and seen that just sitting like in a case on a shelf somewhere. Now, I think, like I said, the approach is going to be what's important. What makes it what game makes movies, what game makes shows. Could The Last of Us be the first one they rope into? Could they go to whoever is doing the rights for Uncharted right now and be like, hey, guess what? You don't have this anymore. We do. And, kind of go back on it, go back to square one for the 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 12th. It's not coming out time. It's a very dicey decision, and I don't think it's a good one. At first blush, I don't think it's a good one. I hope it works, because I would love to see some of these get translated to, a big screen or small screen experience. The issue with that is when will it be too much? And when will one overtake the other, right? Like, will there ever be a moment where, how many of us played Spider-Man, right? Played Marvel Spider-Man, and when the credits rolled, we're like, I want that sequel, like right now. And, this does, yes, it gives them the opportunity to kind of like have that connective tissue, to be like, hey, guess what? Like, you'll see more of this in late 2019 when we start the Spider-Man series. Like, cool, great, web shorts or whatever the fuck you got to do. No pun intended on the web shorts. But when it gets to the point where this kind of media, right, this medium with games, or not with games, but with movies and TV, production-wise, can pretty easily outpace a video game. It's, when do these get muddied? When do these stop becoming clear? When does one surpass the other? We saw it with Game of Thrones, where, they outpaced the source material. And then what do you do? How do you come back from that when everything's in your house, under your umbrella? How do you prevent that? How do you capitalize on that? Like, how do you not, really, I guess, create some sort of franchise fatigue, right? Where it's like, okay, you've played God of War, now watch the God of War movie, and then in 2 years you'll have the game, and then in another 2 years you have the movie. But it's a lot. It's a lot to think about, and it's a lot that, I'm not a prognosticator by any stretch. I'm an asshole in a basement with a microphone, but I don't know to what extent you can push this before you screw it up, and how little pushing it may actually take to get there. It seems like a harebrained kind of move right now. I think it's them getting ahead of themselves in terms of what to expect and the work that's going to be involved, and how the MCU is very much lightning in a bottle. Like I said, I would be shocked if before I'm a skeleton in a grave somewhere that we see someone do something like the MCU bigger and better, or if even of, equatable quality. Best of luck. It's a cool idea. Just, I don't think it's their best. Going over to GameSpot, Eddie McCutch. Red Dead Redemption 2 sales slowing down as online mode leaves beta soon. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a huge hit, though sales appear to be slowing. Take-Two Interactive, which owns developer Rockstar Games, announced today that the open-world Western has now shipped 24 million copies. Shipped. Shipped is the key word there. That's up from the 23 million figure that Take-Two announced in November. Growth of the title seems to be slowing. Red Dead Redemption 2 shipped 17 million copies right at launch, with a further 6 million coming by November. 1 million copies shipped since then is impressive, but it's on a slower pace than before. Red Dead Redemption 2 also makes money from Red Dead Online's microtransactions. The Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick confirmed on an earnings call that Red Dead Online will exit beta during the current quarter, so it should happen soon. Red Dead Online launched in November as a beta, and it has remained in beta since then, with Rockstar supporting it with new content regularly. The signs are looking good for Red Dead Online to continue to be a huge success, as Zelnick said Red Dead Online is performing better than GTA Online over similar periods of time after release. Quote, "We have very high expectations for that title going forward," Zelnick said. This is specifically related to various engagement metrics that Zelnick did not expand on. He did add that Rockstar learned a lot from the release of GTA Online, lessons that were applied to Red Dead Online. I said I don't want to be like the Alex was right kind of thing, but I mean I did kind of say I didn't think Red Dead was ever gonna. It didn't seem like it had the legs, the staying power. Now they are saying yes, this is outpacing GTA 5 over current timestamps or current stretches. The thing with that you gotta remember is that most people don't remember GTA Online kind of had a shitty launch. Like it wasn't good, it wasn't popular, and it wasn't until a year or two later that like it blossomed and boomed into this thing that it is now, where it is, still one of the top games on Twitch. It's still one of the best selling games month after month after month after month. almost 6 years we've been talking about GTA 5 being in some sort of sales discussion, right? And to be at the state where Red Dead has slowed down but the online is outpacing GTA Online, I don't think that's going to stay. I think that the next question you've got to ask is, okay, where do you expect when GTA 5 blew up in that time frame? Where do you expect Red Dead to be by then? Not revealing the metrics is weird. Not talking concurrent players is weird. I know it's getting ready to exit beta, and we'll start seeing more there. I know there was the whole bug with the giant pile of dead burning horses you could interact with, but if you shot near them, they screamed. But it's, I don't know. I think GTA Online has that je ne sais quoi, and a lot of it I think is just that recency feel to it. It feels modern. It feels, lived in. And when you get into something that is the West, that is more, archaic and anachronistic kind of like weaponry, and in terms of like, what GTA has to offer. I don't see how that translates, and maybe we'll see it once it launches, and those game modes will pick up and things like that. But I don't think that it's an auspicious start for Red Dead Online, and I don't think that this game is going to be a major player in these discussions, months or a year down the line. I think maybe we could see some sort of renaissance with it, like a phoenix rising from the ashes when these next gen consoles launch and Red Dead is inevitably ported to them. But I don't know. It's just it's hard to follow up one of the biggest games of all time. So if they're looking at the numbers and they're like, hey, these are great. Like they're not GTA numbers, but these are still great, then great. The game will have a long tail and everyone can, ride it off into the sunset of these consoles. But if it doesn't, if they are expecting some ridiculous, like, I don't want to say a modicum of percentage, but if they're expecting like, hey, like we want this to do, I don't know, 58% of GTA's numbers, like that's still a lofty expectation. So we'll see. We'll see once this gets out of beta. I'm interested to see how this holds up over time and where this story goes over the next, like, probably, I don't know, early 2020. We'll see. I will say I've gotten really good at getting this show down to about a half gallon of water, or a quarter gallon. This little baby's this little water bottle here is a quarter gallon of water. I can typically get through it. Next news comes from Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, where the Call of Duty that's planned for 2020 is an upheaval as Treyarch takes over and plans Black Ops 5. thus rendering the development cycle of Call of Duty games moot. All right. Next year's Call of Duty has gone through a major upheaval as publisher Activision informed developers this week that studios Raven and Sledgehammer, which had until now led the project, will no longer be in charge. Instead, according to 3 people familiar with the goings-on at the companies, Treyarch will lead development on a new Black Ops for 2020. It's a significant shift for Activision's massive first-person shooter franchise, which is one of the most lucrative video game series on the planet. Every fall for the past 15 years, Activision has put out a new Call of Duty game, supported by a stable of different developers who rotated duties as required. Since 2012, Activision has followed a 3-year cycle for its 3 lead studios, Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer. The results have looked like this. 2012, Treyarch, Black Ops 2. 2013, Infinity Ward, Call of Duty Ghosts. 2014, Sledgehammer, Advanced Warfare. 2015, Treyarch, Black Ops 3. 2016, Infinity Ward, Infinite Warfare. 2017, Sledgehammer, Call of Duty World War II. 2018, Treyarch's Call of Duty Black Ops 4. 2019, Infinity Ward, unannounced, but at this point it's basically an open secret that it's a new Modern Warfare. For 2020, Activision had originally switched things up, assigning the Wisconsin-based support studio Raven to take a leadership role alongside Sledgehammer to make a Call of Duty game set during the Cold War, likely involving Vietnam. As of very recently, that's changed. Now Treyarch, based in Santa Monica, California, is in charge of leading Call of Duty Black Ops 5 for 2020. According to those briefed on the overhaul, Treyarch will take creative leadership on this new Black Ops, while Raven and Sledgehammer will serve as support studios for the game, transforming the work they've done on their own single-player story mode into a campaign for Black Ops 5, which will also be set during the Cold War. This may be a welcome return for fans who criticize the lack of campaign in Black Ops 4. It will likely be a cross-gen game to coincide with the launch of the next PlayStation and Xbox, which are expected in the fall of 2020. What this means is that rather than getting 3 years to make their next game after Black Ops 4, Treyarch will have just 2. Some of the companies say they're not pleased about that and are already bracing for brutal overtime hours like they faced last year on Black Ops 4. Others have told Kotaku they're excited about the change, as they have a solid game plan that isn't likely to change drastically, unlike their last 2 projects. This news comes during a strange time for Activision and Call of Duty. Although Black Ops 4 sold well at first, we've heard that it hasn't had quite the revenue tail that Activision's bean counters were hoping to see. Internally, Activision executives have started to talk about embracing free-to-play as a revenue model, once anathema to the publisher. I've never seen that word before. I like it. I'm going to make sure I pronounced it right next time. And three sources say are looking into offering a free-to-play component for this year's new Modern Warfare, although the specifics may not be finalized yet. Some within Activision have remained resistant to the idea. The past year has also been rough for the San Francisco-based Sledgehammer. In February of 2018, Kotaku broke the news that Sledgehammer's co-founders, Michael Gondry and Glenn Schofield, had left the studio. Although Activision spun it as a promotion, saying they'd take on, quote, new executive duties, end quote, it was very clearly an ousting, and the two quietly exited shortly afterwards. Earlier this year, Condry started a new Silicon Valley studio with the publisher 2K, where he's recruited dozens of Sledgehammer staff. The studio has been hemorrhaging employees over the past few months, much to the dismay of those who remain. One primary reason behind this Call of Duty upheaval, according to 2 people familiar with happenings at Activision, is the tension between Sledgehammer and Raven, whose staff are said to have argued frequently during the past year of development on Call of Duty 2020. 2 people familiar with the project described it as a mess. Now both studios will serve as support for Treyarch as the publisher prepares to release Black Ops 5. Activision declined to comment. I cannot wait for Jason Schreier's sequel to Blood, Sweat, and Pixels at this stage. Like, can we just say like that's gonna be a banger? Like the first one was already great. The sequel, the follow-up, including stuff like this, can't wait. Activision's having a rough go, right? Like you saw it with like the Activision Blizzard stuff at BlizzCon with the Diablo Mobile. We're seeing it, with how Destiny's being mixed bag received, inconsistently received, and now with Call of Duty, the game being shoved to a 2-year dev cycle instead of a 3-year dev cycle, that's a big change. Like that is a literal year of production time that's going to be lost. That, granted, yes, they're partnering with, Raven and Sledgehammer are going to go help Treyarch, and they've got this campaign that's going to be carried over and modified, whatever. It's still like, and now you're examining free to play elements, which is going to involve, a more, like, I guess, Fortnite approach with like skins and things like that. It's weird, and we've said it. We've said Call of Duty needed a change, but I think Call of Duty, the franchise as a whole, and Activision, I don't think under any circumstance will ever do this. They just need to pump the brakes. Take a year off. Pull an Assassin's Creed. Take a break. Breathe. Rethink. Regroup. Remap your efforts. Come back. And maybe they can do that in 2022. Get Black Ops 5 out there and be like, hey, guess what? We're just going to support Black Ops 5 for 2020 and 2021. We'll see you again in 2022. Now, how that would affect Activision, as that being its major cash cow for, 15 years, the answer to that is negatively. I don't know. It needs a break. I think. I don't think we need these annualized shooters. And to see it being in this upheaval now, as Mr. Schreier has defined it, it's not. It doesn't portend well for what used to be a very prosperous franchise, right? So I don't know. I think a year off in a couple years, really a year off like 3 years ago, probably would have been the best idea. But if we got to take a year off, I would say maybe 2021 would be the best time to do it. Next news comes from Games Radar. From Alex Savard. The Last of Us 2 is in its final stages of development, says the game's co-creator. The Last of Us 2 is easily one of the most anticipated new games of 2019 and beyond, so it's no wonder that every subsequent week has brought with it more speculation, gossip, and rumor about the title's potential release date. The upcoming PS4 game, according to a recent retailer leak, may be arriving as early as October. I'm still calling bullshit on that. Like, deviating from the article. I'd be shocked. Which has since been corroborated by news that Naughty Dog has wrapped up filming on the sequel, and rumors that we'll be hearing more from Sony before E3 2019 is over, despite their absence from this year's show. The Last of Us 2 is even listed next to other 2019 releases like Rage 2 and Days Gone as coming soon on the official PlayStation website, but a recent update via Twitter from the game's co-director Anthony Newman suggests a 2019 launch isn't yet guaranteed. In a tweet announcing that Naughty Dog is recruiting to hire a large number of animators, game designers, and programmers to join The Last of Us 2's team, Newman said that the studio is now seeking to, quote, close out, end quote, work on the game, suggesting it's in its final stages of development. That's good news for The Last of Us fans, as it sounds as though no huge Uncharted 4-style delays are impending. But it also leaves the window open for at least another year of development on the game before it finally releases. Think about how long it often takes to hire, train, and get people working on a project at any company, let alone one as busy as Naughty Dog. We could be talking for several months before those new employees are actually able to help, quote, close out, end quote, development, a process which, in itself, has an infamously flexible timeline. Yep, I don't got much to say about that. I feel like we're talking this and Death Stranding like ad nauseum, which sucks because we got Death Stranding news coming here after this news story coming up. Again, I would be shocked if it's a 2019 release, but weirder things have happened, I guess. I think we're still 2020. I still think it's a cross-gen thing. I think it'd make a really great little like bannerman to ride out there with the PS5 when it launches, just saying. But it does seem like it is in the throes of being finished, which is exciting. So there's that. Going back to GameSpot from Steve Watts, Netflix is teasing E3 2019 game announcements. Let's do this. Netflix appears to have try it again. Netflix appears to have some game announcements in store, teasing appearances at E3 2019 next month. The studio will have a panel at the E3 Coliseum and has dropped some intriguing hints about what it has up its sleeve. A tweet announcing the Coliseum panel says it will cover, quote, news about its plans in the gaming space, end quote. An attached image names the panel, quote, bringing your favorite shows to life, colon, developing Netflix originals into video games, end quote. Similarly, a Twitter thread from Netflix Sci-Fi and Fantasy Twitter account mentioned the previously announced Stranger Things game adaptation paired with the upcoming Season 3, but also said, quote, there's definitely more to come, end quote. Now in its second year, E3 Coliseum is a main stage presentation that takes place at LA Live, adjacent to the LA Convention Center, hosted by Jeff Keighley. It's part of the ESA and E3's initiative to make E3 a more public-facing event. Netflix has approached games in two distinct ways. The first puts out narrative-driven experiences on its video streaming service, marked with an icon to note that it allows you to steer the direction of the story, like Minecraft Story Mode and Black Mirror Bandersnatch. The other involves console and mobile releases of games based on Netflix properties, like the Stranger Things game. The panel's title certainly seems to imply the latter, but then that raises the question of which properties are ripe for game adaptations. The NX brand tends to promote animated series like She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, Voltron Legendary Defender, and the Dragon Prince, along with live-action series like Umbrella Academy and Altered Carbon. I don't have anything else to really say about that. Netflix is going to be at E3, so take that for what it's worth. Next bit of news. If it loads, we may just skip and come back. Yeah, I think we're gonna circle back to that one while it continues loading. We're going to PC Gamer. Andy Chalk here. Ubisoft says surprise Splinter Cell reveal on Twitter was just a joke. So original story. We'll do the original story, then we'll do the quick update. So basically, we don't really need a whole mess of words for this one. Julian Garrity tweeted, working on the next hashtag Splinter Cell with Dan Haynow and Rom Kammer and hashtag Lion. Can't wait for E3. Crossover with the crew and Fergus. Only missing Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six game, but on their way. Hashtag Far Cry. Hashtag For Honor. Hashtag The Division 2. Hashtag Rainbow Six Siege. Hashtag Ghost Recon. Now, for about 20, 25, maybe I'd say cap at 40 minutes, the internet was ablaze with Splinter Cell rumors. Just like, oh my god, is this how they're announcing it? Are we seeing a Splinter Cell thing? Now, Ubisoft came out with an update. Ubisoft rep issued the following statement in response to the inquiry. Quote, Julian was obviously joking, as Julian likes to do. It looks like our creative directors are having fun right now. We do not have any announcements to make at this time. End quote. As Andy puts in the article, we don't know what Julian likes to do. So why would we just think, what a jokester that Julian? You don't do that. You don't do that. We, people, myself included, have clamored for a Splinter Cell game, have clamored at every E3, have clamored when we saw the night vision goggles kick on only for it to be a Wildlands tease. You bring in Michael Ironside, you bring back Sam Fisher, and you stuff it in Ghost Recon Wildlands when everybody's going, oh, clearly, we'll see something at E3. E3 comes and goes. What do we get? Just Dance on the fucking Wii again. What are we going to get this year? Probably Just Dance on the fucking Wii again. And maybe we'll get a Splinter Cell. Maybe Julian just, screwed up. Maybe he just came out and was like, we're working on a Splinter Cell. And Ubisoft was like, oh shit. Whoa, put out this fire real fast. Julian's a prankster. It's not something you joke about, Julian. Get your shit together. What the goddamn hell is that? Come on. We want a new Splinter Cell. The only thing I want from Ubisoft more than a new Splinter Cell is a new goddamn Prince of Persia. Give it to me. Put it in my veins. I want it in my bones. I want my body. I would just want a bunch of needles and Weapon X me and just make me all rigid and immobile with Prince of Persia. Please. 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 And don't put ostriches in it. Unless it's like a minigame. If you did like a Lego Prince of Persia, you could get away with an ostrich race minigame. Anywhere else, though, it belongs in hell. Give me a new Prince of Persia and a Splinter Cell. And don't joke about this. It's not kind. It just gets our hopes up, makes our hearts aflutter, and then you just stab it and you swallow it whole like the fucking anaconda that you are, Julian. Anyways, just threw that in there. Last bit of news before we get into the wrap-up stuff here comes from Janet Garcia at IGN. What up, Janet? Hideo Kojima keeps teasing a new Death Stranding trailer. A new Death Stranding trailer is likely set to be released soon. We just don't know quite when. Hideo Kojima posted yet another photo on his Twitter account of dual monitors, with one screen displaying the Death Stranding logo and the other with some video editing software. But unlike the image we saw just 2 weeks ago, this one includes Kojima himself sporting sunglasses with his back toward both monitors, with God of War figures prominently displayed in the background and an emoji-filled caption. This tweet is distinctly more playful tease than what we've seen before. Though it still doesn't tell us anything about what to expect from the trailer, nor when we will actually see it. Earlier this year, Kojima showed off the first 2 hours of Death Stranding gameplay, but that specifically was to the developers at Horizon Zero Dawn studio Guerrilla Games. E3 2019 is coming up, but without a Sony PlayStation conference, that would mean Death Stranding has nowhere to take the stage at the convention itself. For now, we have the past series of cinematic trailers, as well as the first gameplay shown in last year's E3 Death Stranding trailer. As for Death Stranding's future, in addition to this inevitable trailer, the most recent reports mentioning the game indicate that Death Stranding is still set for PS4 release, and whether it will also be a PS5 game as well is currently unclear. Hopefully this new trailer will give us a more concrete idea of what to expect in terms of gameplay. So yep, still big nothing burger from Death Stranding. Still doing this, that, and Last of Us. Everyone's going, 2019! Fuck, no. It is not. Prove me wrong, is what I'm saying. But that's it for the news. So let's do your new games and dates. Throwback 3D platformer Effie Shield comes to PS4 June 4th. Super Neptunia RPG comes June 25th. And Gollum Gates fuses deck building with action strategy on PS4 May 28th. But that's all the stuff that's coming out in the next few months. So if you want to know, though, what's coming May 21st, if you want to pause this show and you're going, Alex, what's coming out this week on that there PlayStation Store, then we need to do the drop. Remember, the drop are your new releases on the PlayStation Store, both physical and retail, for the week of May 21st, 2019, North American only, and subject to change without notice. It's a short scroll bar. So we're gonna get some more of this. I'm gonna stretch. Let's do it. Alternate Jake Hunter Daedalus The Awakening of Golden Jazz comes to PS4 digital May 23rd. Hitting me with the digits at the beginning. Oh my god. A new chapter begins in the Detective Jinguji Saburo series. 1 month ago today, Alex tried to pronounce this and is still struggling. 1 month ago today, someone murdered Saburo's grandfather, Kyosuke, while he was living in New York. He soon discovers that his grandfather's last word was Daedalus. What does it mean? Why was my grandfather killed? Why did you switch tenses? Why did you switch point of views in this? A new chapter begins in Detective Chingoju Saburo series. Why was my grandfather killed? American Fugitive comes to PS4 digital. A modern take on classic sandbox action framed for your... that's a period. A modern take on classic sandbox action. Framed for your father's murder, you'll need to do whatever it takes to unveil the real culprit. Tackle thrilling missions for the criminal underworld. Just don't let the cops track you down. Set in the deep south of the 80s, American Fugitive is a love letter to the classic movies and games of old. Back in 1995 comes to PS4 and PS Vita digital cross-buy. A throwback to the survival horror and mystery games of the mid-90s, 32-bit generation, back in 1995, faithfully recreates everything from this all-but-forgotten era of games. Explore a sparse cityscape in the year 1995, littered with clues about the past. Uncover the mystery of yourself, your daughter, and what happened to the city. Dauntless comes to PS4 digital. As a slayer, you are all that stands between your world and the behemoths that seek to devour it. Take on boss-sized monsters, forge powerful weapons, and craft armor from the very creatures you slay, all in a massive free-to-play online world. Dollhouse comes to PS4 digital and retail May 24th. This haunting horror game draws you into the mysterious atmosphere of film noir. Delve deep into the mind of Marie, a detective trying to unravel the secrets of her past, memory by memory. Use the focus feature to see through the eyes of your pursuer as you try to survive a suspenseful game of cat and mouse. Dragon Fantasy Volumes of Wisteria comes to PS4 digital. Experience an all-new old adventure. Fight your way through hordes of strange, silly, and scary monsters. Explore the caves, castles, and dungeons of an ancient evil. Meet warriors, princes, pirates, zombies, and crazy old woodsmen in a huge world of epic retro RPG adventure. Everybody's Golf VR comes to PSVR digital and retail. Step on the course like never before in the most immersive Everybody's Golf experience yet. Swing for the flag with your PS Move motion controller or DualShock 4 wireless controller. Play through 3 incredible courses, practice your putting on the green, or tee off at the driving range to perfect your swing. Oh, buddy. Oh, that's going to be installed as soon as I can. Killing Floor double feature comes to PS4 and PSVR digital and retail. Fight the Zeds across 2 realities in this brutal double feature containing Tripwire's beloved Killing Floor 2 and Killing Floor Incursion on PS4 and PSVR at one great price. The Last Door Complete Edition comes to PS4 digital May 23rd. Feel what it's truly like to be alone in the dark with this low-res, high-suspense, point-and-click horror adventure. The complete edition includes 8 terrifying episodes investigating Victorian England's deepest and darkest secrets, featuring new scenes and puzzles, enhanced graphics, unlockable extras, and remastered sound. If you couldn't guess, Everybody's Golf VR is my pick of the week. Now, my other pick of the week is this one. Observation comes to PS4 digital. Observation is a sci-fi thriller uncovering what happened to Dr. Emma Fisher and the crew of her mission through the lens of the station's artificial intelligence, Sam. Players assume the role of Sam by operating the station's control systems, cameras, and tools to assist Emma in discovering what is happening to the station, the vanished crew, and Sam himself. Skelly Celeste comes to PS4 digital. Prophecy foretells that one day hell shall runneth over and the evil dead will spill onto the earth. Yes, it was the plot to Ghostbusters. Skelly Celeste is a score attack / run and gunathon, oh my god, that places players in the skeletal shoes of a heavenly keeper. Take on procedurally generated gauntlets of hellspawn and defeat the sinful horrors that lurk in the depths of hell. Slay the Spire comes to PS4 digital. Slay the Spire is an energetic fusion of card games and roguelikes. Choose your cards wisely, craft a unique deck, encounter bizarre creatures, discover relics of immense power, and make your way to up the ever-changing Spire. Team Sonic Racing comes to PS4 digital and retail. Team Sonic Racing combines the best elements of arcade and fast-paced competitive racing. Face off with friends or race together across stunning worlds, sharing power-ups and speed boosts. Choose from 3 distinct character types and unlock game-changing vehicle customization options to suit your racing style. And lastly, virtual reality comes to PSVR digital. Put on VR headsets and VR to dive into nested worlds and escape your AI manager Chaz. Activitude, the virtual labor system, assures you that your artisanal human companionship is still highly valued by our AI clients, even if their requests seem eclectic. Feeling destructive? Vacuum away realities with your Activitude brand poly cleanup tool. What the fuck? What is the game? Put on a VR headset in VR. That's Anyways, virtual reality is coming. Cool. So it's time for Trophy Talk. Remember, Trophy Talk is the part of the show where I try to take you from 0 to 100 on a game as fast as possible, because nothing matters. Least of all, trophy lists. And you just pat them with the bad ones. Sign up for Sony rewards, get all those Ratalica games, and then pocket the rewards they give you for the golds and the platinums. Observation does not have a platinum, and that bums me out. So we pulled back in 1995, which has 1 silver, 11 gold, and a platinum. Let's take a look here. Clear the opening sequence, clear the first stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage, complete the game with the first ending, complete the game with the second ending, so it's 2 playthroughs, get the pipe wrench, the shotgun, the pistol, the flashlight, and Dr. Randall news clips. Is this a Ratalica game? Because, like, that trophy list is nope, Digica. And developers throw the warped code out. Okay. All right. That's that then. That's a trophy list that is a Ratalica-esque trophy list, is what I'm saying. Let me see. It just doesn't seem right, you know? That trophy list seems way too... All right, no, whatever. Okay. Does not seem like it. It's just, that seems like an easy platinum. Like, if you're asking me, Alex, what's an easy platinum, I'd probably tell you back in 1995 without even playing it. Let's see. Let's look at Super Blood Hockey. That has 11 bronze, 19 silver, 3 gold, and a platinum. Let's see. Score 10 goals, score your first goal, 100 goals, win your first game, 10 games, 100 games, win a 4 versus 8 game, win a 12v12 game. So it's doing a lot of game modes, win the global tournament as various countries. Dish out a disabling injury to an opposing player. Win the first season of the franchise mode. Purge yourself to cleanse the shame of financial failure. Okay. So that's a lot of quantitative stuff. So that's probably going to take some time to pull that one off. Going to pull Everybody's Golf VR. It's 14 bronze, 10 silver, 6 gold, and a platinum. Completed the tutorial, unlocked the long tee, unlocked the seaside courses, unlocking the different courses, different clubs, play a round with a differently colored caddy outfit, see different events, achieve a total of various amounts of holes, got a chip in while making par or better, get a hole in one, then your typical Everybody's Golf, like finish an 18-hole course with a better than a +9, finish an 18-hole course with fewer than 100 strokes. So that's some skill-based stuff. I'm gonna keep looking here, but it does not seem like we have much else. I would definitely say back in 1995 would be your easiest one this week. Other than that, holy shit, what is Predator VR? What? It doesn't have a platinum, but there's trophies for a Predator VR. There's trophies for a Predator VR. Okay. Are we hunting the Predator? Are we the Predator? What is the deal with you? Interesting. That's something to maybe come back on. All right. Well, that does it for Trophy Talk. Your easy platinum for the week is back in 1995. With that said, this has been the PlayStation Forecast, and it does come to you each and every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on youtube.com/pressx2alex or the podcast service of your choice if you just search the PlayStation Forecast. There you go. That's how you find it. It's not on SoundCloud. We're still working on that. If you want to support the show, remember you can at patreon.com/pressx2alex for as little as $1 a month. If you want to go above the dollar, I'm not going to say no, but I've only got it set up for the dollar by default. That's that. If you don't have the dollar, no big deal. Remember, all you have to do is share the show. Let more people see it. Get more eyes and ears on that. That's how we make this thing what we think it can be. And remember, if you want to help, do anything else, follow me on Twitch where you can get the show live. And then I also do weekly streams every Wednesday or Thursday, then about once a month every Saturday. Or subscribe at youtube.com/pressx2alex. If you want to let your voice be heard, you can get at me at twitter.com/pressx2alex or write into the show at psforms.pressx2alex.com. As always, those links can always be found in the video and audio version of this podcast. Thank you all for joining me for 61 weeks. Still going strong. I'm still feeling good about it. I love you. Have a great week. Do the thing.